Welcome back. Defender, the original British adventure brand, has launched its inaugural Defender Awards initiative to champion and support local conservation and humanitarian heroes. This is an international campaign that will run in South Africa, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Australia and Japan. To tell us more about this, we are joined by Springbok legend and Defender ambassador Bryan Habana, who's also the founder of the Bryan Habana Foundation and chairperson of the Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, South Africa. Bryan, a very good evening to you and welcome to the show.
So good to be in Igoli, obviously my place of birth, but yeah, good to be back up here and experiencing. There is just such incredible passion and vibe in the city, so good to be back here and hopefully chatting about what is an extremely exciting opportunity.
Of course, talk to us about these Defender Awards. What are they all about? You're very excited about them?
I am very excited. I think firstly, as a South African, we know the ability of the need to give back and give people hope and opportunity.
Right.
I think the inaugural Defender Awards is this global initiative by a legendary adventure brand. I think I've been very fortunate to be a part of this Defender environment for the better part of 15 years, and they've got a long relationship in giving back, in making a difference globally in the world. I think since 1954 with their initial Red Cross, and the World Wars, and I think the ability to give people an opportunity to apply, whether it be small-scale charities, NGOs, individuals that are change-making in 4 really important silos. So firstly, wildlife, and in South Africa, we know how important our wildlife is.
Very much so.
I think COVID taught us about humanitarian, addition, and then the ability to look after our ecosystems in the land and in the oceans, which has become a really key factor. I know in Cape Town, we've got a few situations about sewage going into the oceans and
oil
things like that.
And
I think the Defender Awards is really trying to find those change makers globally that are making a tangible impact in the world, and through the prize money, the opportunities up for grabs, and give them the support and assistance, whether that be through mentorship, whether that be through the use of a Land Rover Defender vehicle, to be able then to continue their cause and give them the necessary support to scale that impact is an incredibly important one for us.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that prize money and the use of the Defender a little later on, but I'm also very interested, you're an ambassador for the Defender Awards, and yourself and together with other participants will be choosing some of those that would be winning. Talk to us about your involvement there in terms of what that process is going to be about.
So obviously there's a process. The applications are currently open. If people go to landrover.co.za and go to the Defender Awards and find out more about it, they can apply. I am very fortunate to not only be a global rugby ambassador for the Defender brand, but be on awards panels with some absolute champions in both the humanitarian and conservation space, in Ross Holgate from the Kingsley Holgate Foundation and Ivy Wairumu from the Tusk Foundation. And in so doing, have the privilege of looking through all these applications and selecting those that we feel adequately speak, firstly, to the South African context about those 4 silos, about wildlife, humanitarian, land and sea, but then speak about global opportunities for these people to scale their impact. And yes, we do have a tough task at hand, being able to make sure that we firstly choose the right finalists that would then go on to the global stage, and to your point, 7 countries globally. South Africa is the only developing country that's been, amongst these incredible, global leaders in markets. And I think for us to have that capability of not only understanding how passionate the Defender brand is about conservation, humanitarian efforts, but more importantly, how incredibly upbeat they are about supporting those that are really making a difference at grassroots level. So a tough task at hand, probably a little bit easier than having to defend the All Blacks at Emirates Airline Park.
I can imagine.
But something that I think, to the point around Laureus, the Bryan Habana Foundation, giving back is close to my heart, and this opportunity really will hopefully allow individuals, small charities or, those NGO organizations to go out there and further make their impact felt.
Well, fortunate for them, they won't be needing to do the haka, but maybe let's just unpack some of these categories. I mean, you've already named them. And if I'm a charity or an NPO or an NGO that's looking to enter, what should I really focus on?
So, I mean, firstly, wildlife, obviously conservation. We know in South Africa, things like the rhino, the endangered species, a lot of the conservation areas in that environment have a lot of challenges. Sandfox out in Cape Town, there's the fires, there's the rhinos that we have a long plight against. In the humanitarian space, I think we saw through COVID and through your previous segment, we saw how many South Africans are struggling. So the delivery of food parcels to those that are in dire need is a critically important point. And then land and sea, I think 2 resources that we as human beings aren't able to live without. And if we don't look after those, I think as humanity, we're going to become a detrimental, force to ourselves. And if we can find either small-scale charities or non-profit organizations within that space that have a tangible drive to make sure that the impact that they're doing within those 4 silos is something that can make this world a better place, their names will go into the application list, and we would then have the tough task of making sure we select candidates that can go onto the global stage within those 4 categories and represent South Africa with pride.
Yes, like many of our rugby boys have represented us with pride. Let's talk about the prize money and because that's what excites me most. And also just the use of the Defender and how that would be able to plow back into some of these charities and the work that they do.
So Defender has taken a really strong stance about how impactful they want these Defender Awards to be. And it's one part being a legendary adventure brand, one of the most historic. And I know John Smith will give me a big rubbing up because I didn't have an old Defender. I only like the new modern Defender. That is the most rugged of all. But I think the fact that, winners of the Defender Awards will get a 100,000 Rand cash prize. I mean, that's a lot of South African rands.
Just you mean 100,000 euros?
Euros, sorry, euros.
Yes.
Oh no, it is pounds. It is pounds. So about 2.4 million Rand to continue scaling their impact. The use of a Defender vehicle to try charter those very torrential rain territories that they're covering. But more importantly, they're giving them 24 months worth of mentorship to make sure that they understand how to adequately scale their impact, and in so doing, bring them alongside global opportunities to get more learnings, get upskilled, and in so doing, make sure that their impactful sustainability is of the utmost importance.
And how important is it for rural communities and communities that aren't so much aware about how important it is for us to conserve, especially some of these most natural, precious resources?
It is incredibly important to firstly upskill, to educate the market. And when you throw trash on the side of the road, or if you throw a lit cigarette out of your car, and the detrimental impact that can have for us as a community. We saw what happened with the Los Angeles fires earlier this year. In Cape Town, we've had a huge amount of fires where homes had to be evacuated last minute, and the firefighters that are mostly voluntary that go out there and save lives. I think we saw through COVID the humanitarian efforts needed, and yes, it was a very devastating time for all of us, where there was lack of funds, there was a lot of things, and people were needing a loaf of bread or milli meal to just see themselves through. And we see your previous segment, 350 Rand a month for some people to live on is absolutely nothing. And these efforts are really needed by humanity, and I think we do have incredible change makers on the ground doing some phenomenal work. And Defender Awards really wants to highlight those, spotlight them, and make sure that they're given the necessary support, not only financially, not only through the use of a vehicle, but then also to tangibly scale that impact. And the more we can get that message out, we know how many people are doing conservation efforts just around the rhinos in particular, not only in South Africa but globally. I raced the cheetah back in 2007 to raise awareness about the plight of the cheetah becoming an extinct animal. And as South Africans, I sometimes don't think we realize how fortunate we are with our plethora of wildlife, of national parks, the beauty that we have within the South African as a landscape. And these awards will hopefully highlight that. It will hopefully educate people about how important those 4 silos are, not just for Defender, but for us as humanity. And if you are making a tangible impact, if you are really changing the game and making things applicable to your own community, it might be small, it might be big, but if we can create the snowball effect of awareness, of education, and hopefully together making a proper impact in this world, I think we would have done our job with the Defender Awards.
Certainly, and hopefully inspire others as well to get into the space of being conservationists and heroes of humanity. And then, so for anyone that does want to enter, talk to us. How do they enter? When's the closing date? And when will we see the awards take place? So
I think, again, as a South African, we need to call them Mzansi to apply. Firstly, get out there, go to landrover.co.za /Defender /Defender Awards, put your application in. The actual entries close on the 16th of June, so a really important date in the South African calendar. It is a public holiday, so make sure you do your work before the public holiday.
Please.
And, Youth Day on the 16th. And therein will lie the process, once the awards have closed, the applications have closed, we will then go through the judging process, and hopefully within a time frame of between 2 to 3 months, the process of choosing those finalists and giving them some very cool prizes will be realized.
So this is very important. South Africans, make sure that you do participate. We're looking for one South African participant who will receive that Defender vehicle, but also most importantly, the support efforts in scaling up whatever businesses and charities that they are running, and a 2-year mentorship, and also that 2.4 million rand cash prize. That's absolutely amazing. Bryan, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we certainly do hope that you will find all of these heroes that exist within our humanitarian spaces. Thank you for your time.
Definitely we will. Thanks, Katlego.
So that was Springbok legend and Defender ambassador Bryan Habana, who's also the founder of the Bryan Habana Foundation and chairperson of the Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, South Africa.